we have a remarkable panel discussion on minimalism versus maximalism. Let us hear for our teams their views on the subject. May I first call on stage our moderator for this discussion, Mr. Babu Cherian, BCA Architecture, designs that radiate warmth and an aura of timelessness, designs which are the realization of a desire to integrate the natural elements, make him an architect with a difference. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for Mr. Babu Cherian, please.
To all the creative minds out there, a very warm welcome to all of you for this panel discussion. And it's what you call a subject topic given by the Coimbatore people, I believe, the curators. It's about minimalism and maximalism. Yes, in the beginning, one of the architects mentioned about the new Pritzker recipient, David Chipperfield. I just want to go back in time and talk about the first recipient of the Pritzker Prize, Philip Johnson. He also happens to be a minimalist. And he was an ardent fan of Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. And he's the person who said, less is more. And that's where I would like to start off with. It's always said that less is more. This came out from Mies van der Rohe because he had a lot of clutter in his home and he felt that he has to remove it one by one. And later, he developed a style called minimalism, which became very famous. And it was a dictum which was well followed by students all across colleges, architecture schools, the less is more. But the question again arises whether the less is really more or is it a bore, whether we need to clutter up spaces. This is something which we would be discussing during our panel discussion. Yes, we understand that it's about simplicity to create a unique space. Minimalism is all about simplicity. We talk about simple shades, pastel colors, no brightness. Some people even call it cold and frigid. And other thing is about flamboyant colors and flamboyant spaces. And it's also a synonym with hoarding of things. Clean lines and subtracting clutter. Of course, that's what Ludwig did. And about going big, glad, patterning, highly saturated colors. That's the second thing that we look into when we talk about maximalism. Yes, the angles, the materials, lighting, all these adds to it. We see the postmodernists, the people who talk about maximalism in the modern era, Zaha Hadid, Frank Gehry, who comes out with varying types of buildings. Of course, the last slide, the color palettes used, the wood, the tones, and the jarring colors, if someone may say, about maximalism. I think this is just a few slides to just put an idea into what it is and the imageries. Maybe during the discussion, we will go more into it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cherian. Now, I would like to call on our speakers for this panel discussion. Firstly, I would like to call on stage Siddarth Sankar from Sankar and Associates, established in the year 1966 by T.S. Ramani Sankar and expanding in the year 1987 with the addition of two partners. Sankar and Associates is today among the most reputed architectural firm of southern India with a project profile that cuts across various sizes and complexities and range across a wide spectrum of categories. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for Mr. Siddarth Sankar, please. Next speaker we have Dinesh Anand, Oculus Design Lab. Architect Dinesh Anand, Principal Architect of Oculus Architecture plus Design and the founder, partner of Oculus, the building laboratory, established in 2014, based out of Coimbatore and branched in Chennai. Team Oculus strongly believes that every project should be designed contextually, evolving a space that is perceived in new ways. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mr. Dinesh Anand. Moving on to our next speaker, we have M.Fowler from Fowler and Fowler. The firm was established at Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu in 2003 by M.Fowler under her own title and launched the firm by pioneering the design of retirement villas amidst a coconut plantation. Set in a background of the Western Ghats, the entire of the village was founded on the concept of community living for people who have entered their golden years. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for M.Fowler. Moving on to our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, may I call on stage Mr. Ravikumar from Nexion International. Nexion International is the only design in Italy and made in India manufacturer of sintered stone slabs in the most premium segment of the ceramic market in India. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for Mr. Ravikumar. Over to you, Mr. Cherian. Please take over.
Good evening, and once again, welcome to you all. A panel discussion, it should never be a question and answer session. I think we'll start off from somewhere and let's see where it leads, and that's how I would like it to be, and keep it that way. We're all emotional human beings, you know, we're all very emotional about our things. We are also very emotional about our spaces, like, you know, certain people like to have a picture in their room, they like to have imageries, they like to recollect certain things. Some people are rooted to the past, so they have things that talks about history. So it's basically your space is all about emotions. That's what I personally feel. So when we talk about it, many isms come into life. Like, you know, we have learned about many isms, many practices. You did mention about history, like, you know, I don't mention about the history, how architecture started off. So I'd like to make this icebreaker session, you know, where do we all lean to, like, you know, where do we all, our architecture style, or rather our sensibilities, where does it lean to? Whether it leans to minimalism, maximalism, whether it's all about clean lines and cold places, or is it about hoarding things and like you being very bold? So I like the lady of the group, Minnie, to kickstart the discussion.
Thank you, Babu Cherian. Like he said, architecture is about experience. You're creating experiences. And finally, I think, like, where does one lean to? It depends upon the cultural, social environment that you are existing or you're living in. Now, if you look at how did minimalism start? It started during a world war, at the end of the World War I. It started at the end period when there was a Spanish flu, similar to our COVID flu when thousands died from the pandemic. And also it was a time of economic recession. So is it a wonder when the shift from a highly maximalistic Baroque and, you know, highly decorative styles were reduced to a minimalistic style? The minimalistic style, as you call it, started with the Bauhaus. But my point is, as a society, when we as architects, what do we cater for? Can we afford to have a leaning to minimalism or maximalism? We may have a personal style, but that's us. Ultimately, it has to be a balance between the architect and the client, and that's what my personal feeling is.
So just to add to that, do you gravitate to any particular style in architecture?
I am a minimalistic person by nature. I like simple lines. I like fluid lines. I like fluidity, a combination, a fusion, where the landscape and the trees and the natural atmosphere is a part and parcel of my building. But I also love artwork, so which means my walls have to be able to focus or give focus. My spaces have to give focus to that. That's my style. So it's a fusion. I wouldn't call it minimalistic to the pure sense, but I would call it a fusion.
Good to hear that you have created your own space and style for yourself. And one thing I could gather from you is like how minimalism started off, like, you know, World War I, and economic crunch has again resulted in making things more minimalist. Siddarth Shankar,
It just made more sense. That's
Yeah,
all.
it is what makes sense. Siddarth, I would again ask whether you lean to the excesses or the minimalist.
Hi, everybody. So, Babu, I have always been a style agnost. I mean, I have not embraced any isms. But anything that's appropriate to the project, anything that, needs to suit the project and the client is probably the right ism that one needs to go with. Of course, with the architect's own style and the architect's own, thought behind the project. To add to what Minnie said, minimalism started during the Bauhaus, and it started as a part of a re-industrial revolution where, things had to be mass-produced, which is why, there was a certain simplicity to the whole thing. It has obviously been, taken by masters like Mies van der Rohe and, taken it to the next level. And ultimately, I don't think minimalism is frigid by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, you go to a Mies building, I mean, if you go to his Barcelona house or to his house, some of his houses in Chicago, or for that matter, even something like the Seagram building in New York, the experiences, ultimately architecture is about experiences. It's about experiences is what evokes a certain emotion. I think that's where all these masters have been so successful. They've evoked the right kind of emotion in the right kind of buildings, whether it's minimalist or maximalist. I mean, you take a Zaha Hadid building, let's say you take the museum in Baku. I don't know what to call it. I mean, it's not minimalism, it's its own thing. And today, I think there is a senses overload with the kind of information that we are getting all around. And, to add to all these isms is the technology that goes into both making the buildings and, designing the buildings. So even that plays a huge role in what buildings look like today. To my mind, I think, as Gandhi said, let the windows open and let the breeze flow through and pick whatever you want, whatever that's appropriate for that particular project.
Yeah, thank you, Siddarth. And you did say that the word simplicity just came in, and you said minimalism is not an easy thing. It's not frigid at all. It is not so very simple. When Philip Johnson designed this building, the glass house, it was very minimalist during those times, and it was a shocker for many people because it was so very transparent. It was so hollow, and it was very, very modern for the time. There are various reasons and theories about it. It shows off. One theory says that Philip Johnson was an exhibitionist, so he wanted himself to be shown off and things like that. But one thing that comes to my mind is, can a minimalist building be sustainable? I know that. Yeah, that is it. No, I'm saying that a body of his works, a few of his works were really minimalist. That's what I was trying to convey, So when we do such minimalist houses or buildings, is it sustainable?
I think my point is, if you consider glass house, it was set in a forest. Like one of our presenters was asked whether her house was going to be sustainable. Now you have to look at the whole place, you have to look at the whole setting. It's a matter of bringing the outside inside. There was no question of privacy. So the whole movement, the experience, the whole thing was not the house, it was the outside. It was the landscape outside. Fundamentally that, especially the way he's approaching the house. And the whole house was just an open plan, which itself, they were living in the forest and yet protected. They didn't have to make a tree house. It is a house.
I think it was so open that when Frank Lloyd Wright visited the place, he asked whether I should remove my hat or keep it on, because the inside and the outside is almost the same. So there it goes, you're talking about the garden and stuff. Yes, Dinesh, your turn. You could, Please
snatch my mic.
Okay, yeah, you can have my mic, yeah.
Yeah, good evening. Just to start with where you spoke about, you said the right words about emotions. So it's a very subjective thing, right? So probably what Tado Ando learned through his emotions in childhood was very different. So his reflection was completely more minimal. But wherein when we hail from more of this kind of a zone, an Asia Pacific zone, however you want to put, I think all our life has been more of celebration and decorative. Everything has been with a lot of pompous and, so I don't know, I somehow always keep this belief, like I kind of second with most of them. There's no ism.
So you don't sway or gravitate to any of these?
I don't, because there's one simple thing is, there's no purest definition per se to call any isms as isms. It's like, it's a very subjective thing. It could be minimal, but then when I try it, it would be minimal in my way. So it's like, probably, it's more like how you see the women, all clean forehead, but you'd see a very nice red dot right on top of it. If you'd want to call it as minimalism, it is minimal. But then if you want to take the other side, it has got a touch of that identity with its own decorative part, or however you want to put it. So it's been with us where we've all been a mix, and there is no ism per se to me, like, that this is, because I'm saying like probably a couple of them did it, the rest.
I think we're all getting very philosophical here about things, and I could add on to it, like if you remove the bindi, will it become more minimalist?
No, all I mean to say is like, it's a very subjective thing. Like, I hail from a society where, as what you said, even without a bindi could be called as a minimalism, wherein somebody else would say less ornated would be a minimalism. So it's like, because we hail from this kind of a society, our look at minimalism would still have some kind of an element which may not be classified as a minimalism in the rest of the world. So all I mean to say is like, minimalist or maximalist, as long as it makes sense with the requirements, like, the material.
I know we all agree to that, but we need to deliberate on this anyway.
Yeah.
So another thing I'd like to add.
No, just one question to Siddarth. You did mention the word sophistication. I forgot to ask about that. No, simplicity. And simplicity, when we say simplicity, it's not very easy. Michelangelo said simplicity is ultimate sophistication. So to make something minimal, I think it's very painful. That's what I believe. Please carry on.
One of the things is we are looking at minimalism and maximalism through a Western construct completely, right?
I'll come to the Indian part
Look at the
later.
Indian side of things. I mean, you're completely influenced by Indian culture and things,
I'll come to that later.
both
yeah.
aesthetics, how things are planned, it's a completely different lens. So, you have beautiful mandala paintings, you have a Deepa Stambha. Is that minimalist, maximalist? What is it? Right? Right.
Opulent.
So, I think we look at all these things through a completely Western lens. Simplicity is probably the most difficult thing to achieve. And simplicity is not only in form.
You don't equate it with minimalism at all.
Sorry?
You don't equate it with minimalism.
I don't think so. Simplicity could be in anything, right? I mean, it can be equated to aesthetics. It can be equated to planning. Ultimately, simplicity comes through clarity of thought. And clarity of thought always works. Clarity of thought, and you can see that in any project, right? It can be an extensive project. What is the Taj Mahal? Is it minimalist?
We'll come to a conclusion on that
Yeah,
towards the end, I believe.
But Taj Mahal, there's such clarity of thought and there's such simplicity, but you can't call it a minimalist building, right? So, to me, I mean, it's a very Western construct. I mean, you're pigeonholing things into minimalism, maximalism. It's very difficult in architecture. That's what I
We'll come back to the East later, and then we'll deliberate on that. Ravi, you are an industry person. You are into production. You have been interacting with architects. You come out with products. Does these things, what we are talking about, apply to your field? How do you look at it?
See, it is a tough question for an industrialist to ask, because as an industry, not only tiles, but any industry as such, maybe we can say that industrialists will always be with a maximalism and not with the minimalism. Because as an industrial person, we tend to give choices to the people, to the architects, to the customers, and they require a wide variety of choice. And to have wide variety of choice, wide inventions are required, and that will take us to a level of maximalism. altogether. Now, if you take tiles as an industry, it have got, you cannot even count the kind of choices we are having. Maybe how many designs, maybe 10,000 or more designs, or even some of the lights, if you take much. So it is all about, industry is all about giving choices and options to the client. So we will be with the maximalism all the time. But having said that, within the industry, we would also be like to promote a kind of minimalism. Like whether it is with the designs, some of the designs will be very, very simple, plain designs. Some of the designs will be, with core colors or with complicated designs. So industry as such will be going for maximalism, but within the industry, yes, of course, we will be promoting both minimalism and maximalism as well. So we are actually a combination of both. We are here to, because we are manufacturers and we are here to give options and choices.
Thank you, Ravi. I think let's generalize this a little more and broaden this up, and instead of narrowing it up. We are driven by what you call a vendor-driven society, culture, like, a lot of products, people starting experimenting. India is going through I think a paradigm shift in architecture. I don't know where we are heading to, where our sensibilities are. We are driven by technology, we are driven by the products that are in the industry. I read it somewhere in the Times of India that's come up in one of the North Indian states, the architecture we produce today, after many years, will people give it a second glance? Will people give it a second glance? So it's not about minimalism or maximalism, it's about the architecture we are doing it. Siddarth, would you like to talk about it? Because you're talking about other thing as a Western concept, like where are we, the Indian architecture, where do we stand, and what do you foresee?
So we are at absolute crossroads, like everything in India, not just architecture, everything in India. We have been poised for a jump, and we've been poised for a jump into international. And I think there are a lot of people who've done it well and who are doing it really, really well. So many Indian architects are now slowly becoming internationally recognized. I see a lot of Indian architects practicing abroad, not just in the Africas and the, places like that, but then in reasonably well-developed countries. I see a lot of work in
inverters, the West?
Sorry?
The inverted, the West?
Well, Charles Correa has done enough work in the West now. I mean,
the Chambly is a perfect example of great architecture.
Recently I was in
Spain.
New York and I saw his Indian embassy. So beautifully done. So many guys are beginning to do work I know a lot of people that are doing work in the Czech Republic and West, but yeah, almost there. Yeah. So, yeah. So I think Indian architecture is poised for a big jump. What is heartening to see is that there's this new kind of style that Indian architects, I'm sure Shruti and Muse Labs, they would probably sort of talk about the work that they're doing in their presentation. It's a very impressive work which is now being regarded around the world. So, but it is a completely new style, right? It's a style that suits this country, which people are now beginning to turn around and give a little look and say, yes, this is very interesting. So I see a very positive move forward. Technology is playing a huge role in how buildings are shaped. When I say technology, I just don't mean the computer side of things, or I just don't mean this thing. AI, of course, is going to make us lose a lot of jobs, but other than that, a lot of technology, prefabrication and things like that are now giving architects things that you could have never imagined before. And Indian architects have also, are slowly catching up and doing it. The only problem in India always been our budgets. And our other problem with Indian architecture has always been research. We've always been poor in research. So I think once that catches up, and once clients start recognizing the importance of these two factors, the Geo World Center is probably one of the most expensive projects in the world today. And slowly we are catching up. So I have a very optimistic view of things as far as this is concerned.
So that you did say that some architects are really doing good. They're doing works abroad and all this stuff. Look at our neighboring country, Sri Lanka. It's 1/8 us size and population, it's coming out as very interesting architecture.
That's because they embrace
No,
their
I just wanted to say whether it's the education system or the culture there which is changing things. I would say that if you go out to a bookstore, you have architectural bookstore, you can at least find at least 10 books on architecture of Sri Lanka. But you don't find much books on India, like, architecture.
I don't think we document ourselves very well.
No, that I wouldn't say that, because the people who come out with the books on Sri Lanka are people sitting in the West. So they have seen something good out there. So it's not a question of documenting. They come there and document it. So are we lacking something there?
But look which Indian architects have been documented. Think about it. Laurie Baker has been documented. See, these are people that have embraced their own style. These are people that have embraced their own culture, and Sri Lanka has consistently done that.
Yeah. So when we talk about Sri Lanka, they've consistently done that, and they had a leader there in Jeffrey Bawa. Do we lack somebody like that in residential architecture?
I think you need to consider that it's a much smaller place, one,
Yeah.
and it's influenced heavily by the tourists who visit, that is, and also Jeffrey Bawa himself was influenced by Italian architecture, and the Italian lines, and if you want to call it minimalism, you can call it. And by the way, just as a point, an FYI, I don't think minimalism should be reduced to calling it simplified. It is not. In fact, it's one of the most difficult things to create a minimalistic building because it requires severe discipline. But coming back to Jeffrey Bawa, I think he redefined what architecture was, and he has created something which no other person could. And India is too vast and too broad.
No, can I add to that he's created language there?
He created a separate language.
Do we lack that?
I think we do, because we come from different states, we come from different languages, we come from different cultures which are actually influencing the architecture that we are practicing today.
Dinesh wants to add to that?
Yeah, I think, see this, from whatever has been spoken about, I think you touched upon this longevity, whether these styles are going to be evergreen. I think, see, anything which is significantly got, as you want to say, a Hatke kind of an identity, is going to last its time.
Slightly blunt on my question, like the buildings, we have a rich heritage. The buildings we do now, will people give it a second look?
As long as we don't ape each other, I think the problem with most of us is like, you don't get inspired, you get influenced. So the problem is you end up putting yourself completely replicating wherever you're getting inspired from and get more influenced with it. So then the idea is like, you see 6 of them without the name, and if you're going to see all of them going to look alike, I don't think there's anyone who's going to bother to see you, because he's anyways going to see it with 3 other people. So you look at anyone, I'm saying, it never comes with a quantity. Like I think there was a man who didn't do beyond 10 buildings, and it didn't last beyond a few 100 kilometers. I think myself, we had a short trip, we went and we saw Gaudi's work. I don't know how many centuries have passed now when you still use her name in a very different way. I think people here in a very local, even they don't know what it is. They'll say, like, "Romba gaadi irukku." So it means like, the over-decorative one has gone in, penetrated, but it stood out time because nobody else got close to it to replicate. So what I'm saying is, if architecture or design or anything for that matter is about creating some kind of a significant identity, which is not going to be very familiar or very similar as many you see around, probably the longevity is going to be more. The moment you start making things look very, repetitive, non-signatured, or when you're going to make it look identical, non-contextual. The reason why I'm saying this is like, you may see a westernized building, and suddenly we try to put the same thing here, irrespective whether it fits here or not, just because you get influenced by it so much that you want to create something as a lookalike. But then when you doctor it, and then you try to do it more relevant to this particular thing, maybe it stands out even more. It has its longevity because it's not paralleled with anything else elsewhere. So my point is like, if all of us are going to stick with some kind of a identity, then you leave it to the rest of them, whether they're going to keep it in memory. If it is worth, they'll keep it. If it's not, they're going to leave it.
use the word influence and inspire, I think we have to accept that plagiarism is there. So we will, it's a thin red line. We would put it across in many words and ways and stuff. But we have to accept that it is there. It's there in architecture, it's there in art, it's there in movies, it's there in all fields, whatever known to man, okay? Now, coming to the next point, like, India, the East, which has a rich heritage, our vernacular sensibilities are very high. We have an architecture which goes back to centuries, rooted to the past. We talk about history in a big way. Whenever there is a festival, we dress up in the traditional attire. When we have a wedding, we go into a traditional building and take a photograph. We have this feel that, for anything, we need a tradition to hang on to. Is it in a way live now? Is it dying? Or do we attach these sensibilities in minimalism or maximalism or whatever it is? How strong these sensibilities are there in the architecture of the present day? Siddarth?
I think it's making a big comeback. That's how I see it. I think there is a lot of vernacular influence wherever those buildings are. There is a lot of vernacular influence even in the modern buildings, or quote unquote modern buildings that we do today. I think it's making a big comeback, and I think we should be damn proud of it. There are people interpret it in different ways. People completely interpret it only the aesthetics of it are taken by certain people. But there are certain people who have gone in and sort of embraced it as a whole concept and have reinterpreted it. There are several examples of architecture that I see today that's doing that. And ultimately, the timelessness of the great buildings, the great Indian buildings of yesteryear, was through the experience, right? It's about how you experience those buildings. You were awestruck, or you were very comfortable, or you were very, you can still go to the Brihadishwara temple and this thing, and you'll be awestruck, or you can come to, let's say, the Padmanabhapuram Palace in Trivandrum, and you're not awestruck. It's such a example of vernacular design, and slowly I feel a lot of architects are adapting it, making it their own, and interpreting it in their own ways, and it's happening a lot. I see examples of it happening quite a bit now.
Mini, what is your take on the vernacular sensibilities?
I
of the
think you
present-day
can just look
architects?
at the Baha'i temple which was designed, and you can just see how it was reinterpreted. Most of our public buildings are monumental, and they have layers and layers of structured work which creates the three-dimensional effects. And the Baha'i temple is a complete reinterpretation or an upside-down reinterpretation of what a public place should be. I think put it in a nutshell, that's what we can think of.
Dinesh, do you still feel that we should hang on to history and tradition and stuff, or we should be very modern in our approach, or should we take something from the past and build for the future?
I think that will be the right way forward, because everyone has done that. Europeans do it, Japanese do it, and we celebrate anyone who's tried to convert their past in a much more, relevant way for the future. So it's like, that's what we all do as beings, right? I leave my grandfather to my son, or, he leaves me to his son. So this is what we are there for. Everything is philosophical, so I don't know how to go without that, but all I mean to say is that's our job. That's our job. See, I think most of the best things which we learn is I just want to tell you, being simple is the most complicated thing, right? And the simple thing what we need to do is we don't have to reinvent the wheel again and again, which people have done for years together. All we need to do is take it from that level and take it to the next one. So what we need to do, we don't have to go back again and say, are we going to reinvent something that this? Just take it from where they have left, elevate it in a better way, put it for the next people. That's the only way we have grown. That's how I feel. We have to take the past, the legacy, and try to fuse it in a very particular way which people can understand tomorrow, and then just leave it to them.
I have a small point to add on to that. I agree to what Dinesh says. See, he's talking about taking the past and retooling it for the future. I'll give you an example of Ramraj dhotis. They put a Velcro to the dhoti. Yeah. You know how many people wear dhotis today because of that? Yeah. And they put a pocket to it for your mobile phone. Okay. So, you know, these are things that, these are cool innovations that started.
But we always require a Velcro to move forward.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So
But I just a point that we are looking at a different, looking at the past, reinventing is all fine. But what about the Gen Z or the next generation that we are looking at, where we are looking at a society where it's gender neutral, where they are redefined. Today men are wearing skirts because they say, why not? And they wear makeup, and it's a fashion statement today. So we are designing, and it's a digital era, right? And parametric architecture, virtual architecture is a big thing. It's the next generation, which means maths, logarithms, all that come into the picture. So why do we need to be defined by our past is also a question I am continuously asking.
Because you pulled in mathematics, I think the greatest example for mathematics is again Brihadishwara temple. Nothing is there without a math. I think the 216 which you see till the top is actually both, the vowels and resonance of Tamil put together is about 216. So what happens is, as what Siddarth was saying before, there is a problem the way in which we document whatever we do, unlike what most of the other learned societies have done. Probably they didn't have a reason to do it. They always thought it was just going to be there, inculcated or whatever. But if we are done, I'm very sure you're again going to go back, just like how we are going to dress. I think there was a bell bottom, there was a baggy, there was a tight, and then we are going back again to all those stories, long sidewalks, big beards, and today those are fashion. So this is like whatever they were saying. We have been great with science, we have been great with mathematics, we've all used it in architecture. And mind you, we have used it way better than what we can actually think about with AI today. How did we do it? Why didn't we document it? No, that's for the rest of the world to decide. But all I'm saying is, we cannot reinvent the wheel. Some way or the other, you will have a reference point which has already been touched before. So I'm very sure we can be happy that we are discovering new things.
So I'll just say that you said there's a reference point somewhere. Yeah. Zaha Hadid has said that every design is a copy. Every design is a copy. It's a statement by her. And I think we all agree to that. And from the discussions that's been happening, when we talk about our roots and heritage, and we are becoming more vocal and philosophical about it, I think Ravi is sitting there and listening to all of us. You did mention about one onyx you're trying to recreate there. And again, something in the color black. So somewhere there is, an urge in us to create something which has already existed in a different format. The Velcro thing you talked about. What do you say about how are people taking your new products?
I was a bit silent because I didn't have the mic, that's why. So, the products that we are introducing into the market, in the way of the discussion as it is going, some of the product, the black onyx that we have introduced into the market was appreciated and accepted by the architect community in a wonderful manner. Since these are the design which within our purview of Maximalism. We have created it with a combination of multiple tiles, because such black onyx kind of things doesn't exist in Mother Earth. So using a couple of existing design, again, simple designs, we created a complicated design, actually. So as an industry, as I say again, we believe in maximalism, but at the same time, we persuade minimalism as well. And when you are talking about, and Sir was also talking about that simplicity is the most complicated subject. I 100% agree with you that we want to create some design which is very simple, then it is very difficult to define what is simple is. Each time we design something, then can we make it a bit more simple? Can we take out those veins? Can we make it a bit more plain? But we make it plain, then it is, attractions are less. So we have to add more vein. So in short, I agree with the panel that being simple is a complicated subject. Yes.
I think Minnie did mention about the Gen Z, and I see in the audience we have a lot of Gen Z sitting there. I think our architecture is driven by technology, and technology is playing a huge role in what we are, our lifestyle, our culture, everything. Technology plays we talk about techno-maximalism, we talk about AI, we talk about mid-journey, we apply all these tools in various works. What do you think the future architecture would be like? Will we be enslaved to this technology? Siddarth? Yes.
Never. There has to be a person who has to create the technology, right? See, today, I'll give you an example. My wife is a content writer, okay? And she's recently got a job with a content writing thing. So what's happened is some of the other writers got chatbot to write it for them, okay? They found out within like 15 minutes that it was written by chatbot. Because there's certain obvious things. The emotions simply don't come out. Any type of creativity does not work without the emotional content. I don't think AI can replace the human mind as far as emotions. I can probably create cold, calculative, designs.
I just slightly rephrase it. Will it dilute things?
It will probably make the process of architecture easier. I mean, you can use it as a great tool. You'll probably use it as a fantastic tool. I mean, I don't think it can ever replace the human mind. I mean, probably the most complicated maximal design that anybody could have sort of thought of. I don't think that can ever be replaced, personally.
No, we had a YAP function in Calicut, and I could see the Gen Z doing their workshops on mid-journey and stuff, and it was working. And
But it's a tool, right?
Yeah, pretty excited about the whole thing. So we cannot say that, we cannot just keep it apart. It's become part of our life.
You embrace it, and you use it as a tool.
Yeah.
Right? But it cannot replace the human beings.
What you meant to say is just a tool. It stays there.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get into a Terminator dystopian future kind of thing, honestly.
You seriously think a computer or any digital, whatever
No,
you
I
come
don't
up
see
with,
that as just a
can
question.
design a building or can design ideas or can bring intelligent thought forward? It can calculate, it can accumulate data, and probably come to an analysis. But can it design? Can computers take over design? That's my question.
That's the answer I'm looking for,
I think just like they had the answer. When we had a pencil, we thought having a computer would kill the design. And so when we had a computer, now we're still doing the same. So when you have AI, probably we'll start thinking whether that's going to kill the design. As long as I think we're going to regard all these just as tools to emote yourself very well and try new things, any technology has to be welcomed. Because if you don't embrace it, then probably we'll be left behind. We cannot survive. So you embrace whatever is going to come your way, but use your brains to use them judiciously and then try to, enhance the possibility of your dreams coming more real. So they're going to kind of liberate your thoughts. That's how I want to put it. Because, optimism is the only way in which any being can survive. So I think the way I would want to look at it is going to probably liberate us a lot more than before. So we can start thinking whatever we want. We can start building much more freely.
Thank you, Dinesh. I think we are running out of time. I think, as you said, we've been deliberating on this subject. What I could understand is from Dinesh, I take the last word. We need to be liberated. We needn't sway on to any of these isms or whatever it is. We have our own identity which we need to understand. We have to be contextual in whatever we do. We have to take care of our nature. We have to be very much considerate about our past. All these things we have covered. I think, so we come to the conclusion that there are many isms. We needn't stick on to that. But let's see what the audience have to ask us on this particular. We have a couple of minutes for the question and answer. Okay, fine. And then I think a big thank you to all the panelists and also for IDAC. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
May I request you all to please stay on stage? Thank you. I think they deserve a bigger round of applause. That was an amazing panel discussion. May I please call on stage Jason Pirani from Muse Lab and Mr. Bhuvana Sundar from Sundar Sundaram Architects to please felicitate our absolutely wonderful presenters and speakers. Can I have you all on stage, please? I would first request you to felicitate our moderator for this session, Mr. Babu Cherian. A big round of applause for him, please. May I request you to now felicitate Mr. Dinesh Anand. Mr. Siddarth Sankar. Mr. Ravikumar. And M.Fowler. Can I get a group photograph, please? Center of the stage, thank you.